I want to give you a quick snapshot of who I am. I recognize a lot of you in the audience, but for folks that don't know me, I am Dan Gibbs. I'm the head of the Department of Natural Resources and live in Summit County in Breckenridge for the last 20 years and joined the administration right in the beginning of January of 2019. So I'm about 4 years into this current position. Before that, I was elected 3 times as a Summit County Commissioner, and then also previously served in the State Senate and State House. And I've been a wildland firefighter for the last 17 years and really take that role very, very seriously and get out there still on the front lines. And that gives me a really interesting perspective of how fires impact, people, wildlife, water, landscapes, and so forth. So I really have enjoyed continuing to work in that realm. How does this all look like for our agenda today? We want to talk a little bit about what the department does, talk a little bit about the budget, and then policy updates. And I also want to make sure there's some time that we can see if any questions are on your mind that I can help answer. Okay, this is our DNR mission and vision. So we're very passionate that our mission for the DNR, which is to manage and conserve Colorado's natural resources for the benefit and enjoyment of people today and tomorrow. I really think about that tomorrow component a lot. I have a 5- and 8-year-old and look through a lens of, how are the natural resources going to be, when they get older. And so this really includes managing, energy resources in a manner that's protective of public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. And when I look around the room, many of you are really important partners to help us achieve this mission and vision that we have today. This is the org chart that we have. I know org charts are never that exciting, but to give you a snapshot of what we do, the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, for example, we manage all mining activity in the state. So that is, molybdenum, coal, gold, aggregate, you name it. So they manage, and they're the regulatory agency for that. We have the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and many of the commissioners on that commission, Mike Cross, you have John Messner. I know Karen McGowan is here as well, but you'll see them at this conference. We have about 300 operators in the state, about 51,000 active wells. We have State Land Board. We manage 4 million acres of state land property, and that brings in hundreds of millions of dollars a year for K through 12 education. Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Hopefully everyone has been to a state park. Raise your hand if you've been to a state park. Thank you. Thank you for going. But we have 42 state parks. We have about 350 state wildlife areas. That's really wonderful asset that we have in the state of Colorado. We have Water Conservation Board. That's the water policy setting body of the state of Colorado. So they help manage our basin roundtables. We also work with the Colorado Water Plan that was recently updated after 7 years. We also have Division of Water Resources. I hate to say it, but I almost consider them like the water police, but without guns. They are make sure that water administration is consistent throughout the state of Colorado and that people are entitled to the water that they own, but not a fraction of an acre feet more. So that is a snapshot of what we do at the DNR. We also have Colorado Avalanche Information Center. If you're an outdoor recreationist in the winter, whether you're snowmobiling or backcountry skiing, or frankly, if you just travel on our roadways, we partner with Colorado Department of Transportation to provide the best up-to-date information on avalanche potential activity around the state. And then we have a new program called CoSwap. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's our new fire program. This is a snapshot of our budget. We're currently, I would say, not quite in the middle of the legislative session, but a little bit beyond. So I think there's about 26 or 27 days left of the legislative session. The long bill is making its way through. I think the conferees are working right now to look at the differences between the House and Senate. But our operating budget is about $400 million. Here are a few priorities that we have moving forward. Our budget includes funding for really important programs here. For example, budget includes additional staffing and spending authority for Oil and Gas Conservation Commission ongoing mission change regulatory operational activities. We also have funding in there to help with our rollout of the Keep Colorado Wild Pass. I hope you all when you renew your vehicle registration that you don't opt out, that you opt in to get a killer deal of a $29 pass that gives you access to all of our state parks. We also have budget in there to help with the implementation of our Future Generations Act. That was really helping funding on more of the wildlife side. This is a little more information on what is in the budget for us. A couple highlights include the Colorado River issues have been on the forefront of the news left and right, but we are creating a new Colorado River team to help Becky Mitchell, who is our Colorado River Commissioner. So we're including people within Division of Water Resources and Water Conservation Board to really provide the technical expertise to make sure that Colorado continues to be a leader on Colorado River issues. And if you followed the news from yesterday or if you heard on the radio this morning, pretty exciting about the supplemental EIS that really focuses on using less water in the lower basin states. And so we're really pleased with this supplemental EIS. But anyways, a few other programs, water plan grant program that's so important. And then we also have our wildfire mitigation program. And that's been so important to say the least. That is a partnership with Department of Corrections, our COSWAP team. It stands for Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program. And so we partner with the DOC crews as well as either youth corps or conservation corps around the state of Colorado to do strategic wildfire mitigation work that focuses on protecting life, property, and critical infrastructure. We have numerous projects around the state of Colorado that we funded to date. This is a snapshot of some of the policy that we're working on, supporting energy development, restoring gray wolf in Colorado, addressing states' water challenges, and improving wildfire mitigation are just a few of the highlights that we have here. Now for energy development. So I mentioned earlier we have an additional 29 FTE that is part of the budget package that will go towards the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission to support operational and regulatory activities. The Commission's also busy with a number of issues over the next few months. So in February, the second annual cumulative impact report was released. The Commission is reviewing that report. The Commission's also implementing the financial assurance rulemaking with plans already submitted that over 80% of Colorado's wells, and hearings on those plans will begin in May. And then finally, the Commission is continuing to make use of the $29 million of Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding to plug orphan wells. So those are all key, really important initiatives that we're working on. The gray wolf restoration project, as you know, 2020, Colorado voters, the majority of the voters, I recognize the West Slope did not support this, but the majority of the voters supported Prop 114. And that directed Parks and Wildlife to do a variety of different things, including bringing wolves back to the state of Colorado. So we have been working, I would say, since the voters supported that, in 2020. And we hired an outside consulting firm to really do public engagement meetings throughout the state. Many of you probably participated in some of those meetings. But the outcome of those meetings were really geared towards providing best kind of consensus language to then the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for them to work on what's called the draft wolf management plan. And so we actually have our last meeting to discuss the wolf management plan before the Parks and Wildlife Commissioners vote to approve that. And that meeting will actually be May 3rd and 4th in Glenwood Springs. And so, we are working diligently on that. And then alongside that, about a year ago, some of you are familiar with the term 10J. Well, that's a wording within the Endangered Species Act. And so the state has requested a formal 10J to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that we think we need to have the maximum flexibility to manage wolves in Colorado. And so we are optimistic that we'll get that by the end of December. I know there may be some questions later on regarding that. And then also water. Although we're right here in the Colorado River Basin, I was looking at the numbers. I think we're about 133% of average right now in the Colorado River Basin. There's some parts, the Southwest region is at 181%. So, we're doing much better than in past years, although we're still in a historic drought, and we're working really hard to look through a lens with recognizing the reality of drought and climate change. And so the Water Conservation Board just earlier this year adopted the Colorado Water Plan. So when people say, what's the plan for Colorado on water, look online, look at our Colorado Water CWCB website, and you'll see the Colorado Water Plan. But that is our blueprint for everything that we do with water. And what I love so much about that, looking at the county commissioners and local elected officials that are here, the water plan is not a top-down approach. It's really listening to what the basins, what their concerns are, and that bubbles up to the state. So it's really locally driven. And so we're really excited to have that updated plan. And then we also have our water projects bill. We have our species conservation bill that's before the Capitol as well. And then finally, the state received $85 million in federal stimulus funds for groundwater sustainability efforts. So that's, really important moving forward. And then, last but not least, I mentioned earlier, wildfire mitigation. In my humble opinion, we are one lightning strike, one unattended campfire, and one more drought season away from Colorado's next megafire. And I feel very, very strongly that we need to do everything we can do to recognize the paradigm that we have, that frankly, wildfires do not know the difference between federal, state, private, or tribal lands. And we in Colorado really need to have a management strategy that reflects that. And so that means working with our local governments. That means working with the U.S. Forest Service. That means working with the Bureau of Land Management. That means the state working with everyone, frankly, to really look at targeted locations and making sure that we are all collaborating together. This COSWAP program, it stands for Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program, that is created and housed within the Department of Natural Resources, has funded 54 projects around the state of Colorado. So if you're a community, a lot of the state projects and federal projects in the past have required grants that have said, okay, local community, we're here in Garfield County, looking at the Garfield County Commissioners, okay, you have a $1 million grant, and you need to come up with $500,000, and that's a lot of money to plan for that. This COSWAP program, if we're on the same page of the right landscape, we'll come to your community and we do the work, period. We're not going to send you a bill. And I think that's really important when you look at the equity around the state. There's some counties and communities that have money and resources to put money towards this. There's some communities that don't. So with that, I'm going to get the hook pretty soon from Kirby, but I do want to see if I have a couple minutes. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think I've been here, I've been invited, I think, for all the times for the conference. I've been in my current role, and looking around the room, see a great diversity of crowd of different expertise, and I'm really glad that you're participating in this, because I think this is a very meaningful conference. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So I'll just open it up, and also, if it's dead silence, I'm also happy to move on and walk to the back room and have a side conversations with folks too. So what's on your mind?
What's the 10J ruling allow you guys to do that gives you extra flexibility in your management on the wildlife side?
Yeah, so 10Js, so wolves right now are listed as endangered species, which means that it's really the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that would manage endangered species. So it kind of takes the state's hands out of the management. With a 10J, it's like an agreement like this that spells out what the state functions are and what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service functions are. So if you think about it, it's an agreement, and it gives the ability for the state to actively manage an endangered species, where without that, it's really in the hands of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So for example, right now, and I'm looking at Brad Ackerman, so come on up if I need you, who used to work for Parks and Wildlife and knows these issues very well. But for example, we have a wolf pack in Jackson County, and there's actually just 2 wolves that we know of right now in the state of Colorado. But it would be a similar management that we have right now for that, where we can work with landowners, we can work on techniques to help the landowner out. But at the end of the day, lethal take is not allowed, for example, and then on land issues too, if there's a decision that, for example, a county or a municipality want to propose something, and if there's an endangered species, in that area, it really puts an impediment on land use decisions. So the 10J kind of helps take care of a lot of those land use decision concerns. So we're working really hard to achieve that goal, to have that in place by the end of December. So we think that's our preferred path, and we think that's the right path. Any other questions? Okay. Again, I'm around this morning, so I'm happy to chat with any of you on a side, out in the hall or whatever, but really appreciate the opportunity to be here again. Thanks so much.